Android versus iOS. It's a war that's been going on for a while now, and we've got fanboys from both sides defending their phone of choice. And to be honest with y'all, I was pro Android. My first Android phone was a Nexus 4, then I got the Nexus 5, and then the Nexus 6. But recently, I traded in my Nexus 6 for an iPhone 6. And after playing around with the iPhone 6, I thought I'd give you guys my thoughts on this whole Android versus iOS war. But first, hello ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, my name is Tec3, and in today's Tec3 episode, we're going to be taking a look at the pros and cons of both Android and iOS, so let's get started. Now, the way I like to think about iOS versus Android is through the mindset of a gamer. And in the gaming world, you've got PC versus console, and you've also got PS4 versus Xbox One. But comparing console to console is like comparing the iPhone 6 to the iPhone 6 Plus. It's pretty much the same thing. So we're going to be looking at the PC versus console war. Now, on the PC side, they see that their machine can play games at 4K, 120 FPS, and then they look at the consoles and how the consoles can barely hit 1080p and struggle to stay locked at 60 or 30 FPS, and how the console's hardware is so inferior to theirs. And they wonder, why would anyone want a console? This was my mindset when I had my Android phones. I looked at someone who had an iPhone and I thought, why would anyone want an iPhone? Comparing the Nexus 6 to the iPhone 6 on paper, the Nexus 6 completely dominates the iPhone 6. You're comparing a 2K display to a 750p display, a quad-core CPU to a dual-core CPU, and on paper, the Nexus 6 is the clear winner in the spec department. But what about iOS? Why do people choose iOS over Android if Android clearly wins in the spec department? Well, I think part of it has to do with brand loyalty. People just love Apple. And it's the same with some console players. They'll choose to buy an Xbox or PlayStation because it's an Xbox or because it's a PlayStation. And I think the other reason why is because it's simple and it just works. Going back to the gamer mindset, we know how the PC player thinks, but what about the console player? How do they think? Well, when a console player looks at PC, yes, they see the better graphics and they see the better frame rate and all the things you can do on a PC, but they also see that whenever a new game comes out on PC, they see the system requirements for that game and how PC players will post in the comments of videos asking others if their system will be able to run this game at ultra settings or medium settings or high settings or low settings, or if they need to install a new driver, and if the game doesn't work on the rig, how can they fix it? Console players don't want to go through that hassle. They know that with their console, all they had to do is put the disc in and play. That's it. No need to install new drivers or buy a new GPU. And that's how I feel with my iPhone 6. Even though it's inferior on paper to my previous phone, the Nexus 6, it's simple and it just works. Like, for example, on my stock Nexus 6, the Facebook app would sit there and crash after I viewed a video or two, and then there were times when my phone just wouldn't work and I had to restart it. Now, the Facebook app, that could be a Facebook issue and they just need to better optimize it, or it could also be a Lollipop issue because Lollipop came with a bunch of bugs. But on my iPhone 6, all the apps just work and they run so smooth. Despite my phone having inferior specs to my previous phone, I haven't had to restart my iPhone 6 once. But now that we've seen both sides of the coin and how each fanboy thinks and sees things, what are the pros and cons of each OS? Well, on the Android side, you've got superior specs, you've got everything Google, and you've got features up to the ceiling and more. But you've also got a phone that can at times lag or not perform the way it's supposed to, and you've also got slow OS updates because Google has to first push the updates to the manufacturers, and then from the manufacturers to the carrier, and then from the carrier to the phone. It's a long process. And if you decide to root your phone, but you screw up when rooting it, you run the risk of bricking your shiny new phone. Now, on the iOS side, you've got a phone that's simple to use, you get everything Apple, and everything just works. But on the downside, you're more restricted, you can't customize as much as you can on Android, and if you're like me and you're deeply invested in the Google ecosystem, you don't get as much Google on iOS that you do on Android, which sucks. But looking at everything I just talked about in this video, which operating system takes the crown? And the answer to that is, it's up to you. because everyone is different and we all have different tastes. Some might want more features and all things Google, while others might just want the simplicity of iOS. But me personally, now that I've tried all three major operating systems, I don't really have a favorite. There are things that I love about Android, and there are things that I love about iOS. There are even things that I love about Windows Phone. It all comes down to personal taste and what the user wants to use. But that is it, and I hope you guys enjoyed the first episode of Tec3. If you did, make sure to leave a like and let me know in the comments below. Which OS do you guys prefer? iOS, Android, Windows Phone, maybe even BlackBerry? It's your choice. But that is it, and I will see you guys in my next video. This is your boy Tec3, and I'm out. God bless.